criminalized by the American intelligence services.
Are you ready to rule?
We are ready to rule.
When I spoke to Chris Morris earlier in his first TV interview about the new film and began by asking him about the inspiration behind it.
So this film sort of comes in under two questions, which is one, who is the biggest recruiter of terrorists in the USA? And two, what would you do if you were broke, about to lose your house, and someone offered you 100 grand? And that's really, the answer to the first question is, rather surprisingly, the biggest recruiter of terrorists in the States is the FBI. And the answer to the second one gives you the clue as to how our story works. Because the FBI have accidentally, it seems, developed a system which works rather well. And the system is, they make up a terrorist plot, they find someone to try and carry it out, and they arrest them for doing that.
And then get the kudos for having fought the Great War against terrorism.
I guess the essential element of our story is that these people are not terrorists, but the government ends up putting them in jail
for very long
as if they were. Yes, 25, 30 years. And there's a close to 100% conviction rate in these cases. And I wasn't looking for this, I wasn't aware of this. I mean, I think we all sort of have a vague idea that the FBI may be involved in setting people up. But then when you follow the story that I did, and you see it close up, it's jaw-dropping.
It's really shocking and very, very hard to believe. And yet the statistics, once you lay them out, are quite extraordinary.
And I say it's based on 100 true stories. That's a sort of notional 100. It's in the right ballpark. It's more likely 300. But
300 times the FBI have managed to pin a crime on essentially innocent people.
Yes, if I may take the FBI's side for a second, it sort of works like this. You're freaked out by 9/11. You have to cover yourself because you're implicated in some of the sloppy procedures that led to 9/11. So you talk the threat up. You say there's a sleeper cell in every city, and then you go and find it. Now, you don't know what you're looking for. And classically in the FBI, you talk about other people. You look at brown and black people because they are more likely, you think, to be a problem. And if somebody sticks their head up in one of those communities, then you surround them with false friends, informants, who will offer them money and friendship to try and lure them along a sort of carefully scripted program of self-incrimination, which results in that person going to jail. And you will say to the court as a prosecutor, is it better that this person goes to jail or that we let them go back out on the street? And the juries always say, better put them in jail. In real life, what happened was that there was a story on British TV news about supposedly the biggest plot since 9/11, about an army planning to launch a full ground war on the US, based in Miami. And it turned out, 3 years later, I bumped into somebody involved in the trial who said that ground war was actually 7 construction workers who were going to ride into Chicago on horses. This was not a really serious terrorist plot. They had just been wound up by an FBI informant. They had no money, the informant was offering a lot of cash.
Although there are moments of humour in the film, without doubt, the fact is, this is a very serious film. I mean, what it reveals is deeply serious. And I'm almost wondering whether what has happened is that you couldn't use comedy in the way you are used to using it.
Well, I think the comedy is always used to a purpose. Actually, if you look at Four Lions, it's essentially the comedy takes you on board. It puts you on the bus with a suicide bomber cell. So I'm always wanting to use comedy for a purpose. And I think in this film, there are lots of jokes. There are jokes at the expense of the farmers' eccentricities, and there are jokes at the expense of the FBI's machinations. And in the end, you cannot, I mean, in the end of Four Lions, after all, people blow themselves up. At the end of this film, you have to follow it through to the consequences, the end of the story. And I don't really see the point of comedy unless there's something underpinning it. I mean, what are you doing? You know, are you doing some kind of exotic display for the court to be patted on the head by the court? Or are you trying to change something?
Your trade has always been to make fun of us. I mean, I am your sitting victim. I'm intrigued to know what you think our industry has done to respond to the way the world has changed since you were doing Brass Eye, for example.
That's a long time ago.
I know.
I think that time is essentially different in that I think the news was coming to the end of taking itself seriously at that point. There was something changing, and in a way, it was just begging to be parodied in the way that we did, because it was overstating its importance. And then I think quite quickly the news started not to take itself seriously and sort of started behaving like a desperate school teacher trying to get the class on side, because it sensed that people might move away and that the time of saying this is the news, this is what's happening, might be on the ebb. And I think that it's a different time now. I mean, it's
time how? Well, how does it manifest?
Well, because there isn't a single voice. People get their information from all over the place, and so suddenly news is now in a slight state of what can be unique about us, fact-checking maybe, something like that, but it's a smaller prospectus than they originally had, which was, this is what's happening. And I think it was that sort of voice that attracted us to doing a parody of that. But things move on, so you've got to keep your eye on the ball, and I'm not sure the ball is there anymore.
And you really don't feel outflanked by the bonkers which is going on right now?
No, I really don't.
Come on.
I don't feel outflanked.
Even you couldn't have conceived some of this stuff.
But it's not about that, is it? It's about looking at what's happening and deciding what's ridiculous about it. It's not about, at the time we were doing the day-to-day, the Sunday Sport was reporting World War bombers on the moon. It's never about that. It's about the thrust, and it's really about whether the people that you're lancing can get off your spike. And I'm saying that the FBI really cannot get out of the tractor beam of this comedy. I mean, it's true. It's a comedy because it's entertaining. It's a comedy because what happens in real life is a farce, and the conclusion is bound to be serious.
Chris Morris, thank you for talking to us.
All right, thank you.
Chris Morris talking to me earlier, Kathy.
For tonight's main real news, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has written to Brussels with his proposals for a Brexit deal. But tonight, Guy Verhofstadt, who chairs the European Parliament's Brexit steering group, said they were absolutely not positive about Mr Johnson's plan.
And that's all we've got time for this evening. We're back at 7 tomorrow night. Until then, that's Channel 4 News. Have a great evening.
Good evening.
Breathe in the fresh air. Weather on 4, proudly sponsored by Mercure Hotels.
Good evening. Well, the weather's going to be very lively across the UK later tomorrow and into Friday, and that's because there's a Met Office yellow weather warning for gales in the west, the parts of Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwestern parts of England, and some disruption is possible to transport and power supplies. And it's all down to this, the remnants of Hurricane Lorenzo arriving on our shores in the next 24 hours, and around it the winds for some of us will be very strong and gusty. Tonight, though, there's not much going on. Any showers will fade away, and for many of us tonight, it's dry with clear and starry skies. Just a few mist and fog patches forming here and there. But again, it will be a cold night. Temperatures widely dropping down to 2 to 6 degrees, and maybe a touch of frost in the countryside by dawn. So a chilly start to the day tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine first thing, and northern and eastern areas will stay driest and brightest for longest, because elsewhere the cloud will thicken, the wind will pick up with rain arriving across Northern Ireland, Wales in southwest England. Here's the picture in more detail. This is 4 in the afternoon, and increasingly wet at this stage of the day, but the wind's really picking up for Northern Ireland. Widely gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour, maybe some problems in a few spots. Ahead of it, cloudy but dry across the Isle of Man, southern and western Scotland, and the rest of Scotland will be dry with spells of sunshine. It's still quite cool tomorrow. Temperatures generally no higher than 14 or 15 degrees. Now, overnight into Friday, all of us seeing some strong and gusty winds, but the strongest winds for South Wales and southwestern parts of England, maybe some localised disruption there. Otherwise, showers or longer spells of rain will clear southwards through the day, sunshine behind, and it stays fairly mixed through the weekend as well. Enjoy your evening. Goodbye.
Sun-kissed all day long. Weather on 4, proudly sponsored by Mercure Hotels.
6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a music studio and an annex, going grand at 9. At 10, 2 people check out their new apartments, fresh players enter the circle. Next, holiday cottage out, dream home in, hopefully, location.